Hi everyone, welcome to another installment of the Martian World's Progress. If you haven't seen the previous videos, please go ahead. It'll make more sense in context. Basically, I have the levels of detail from the previous video stitched together. By the way, I'll have more on the game progress as well once I implement this. Sorry if it might be a bit technical for some, but if not, for those who are interested in the development process and the journey, this might be of interest to you. But I'm quite excited as to how this turned out. So we actually have the LOD generation in real time now. So it's combining all the different levels of detail together. They're all associated using a tree. So this big one will associate with some, more detailed ones, and these associate with some more detailed ones, and so on down a tree. If you want to see that tree representation, you can look at the previous video. I kind of have it rendered in a way that gives you a nice, good visual effect. To see how they're all related. But anyways, it's pretty cool. I thought it was actually quite interesting to see how it does it in real time. Speed. Yeah, what is the speed of this? So I know some of you are wondering how fast this is. I'm actually excited that it's quite fast. This is real time. It's actually not even in a thread. This is not threaded. This is real time. And it's actually quite fast. If I get it as close to the planet as possible, then you can kind of see the frames per second. It's actually not bad. Like, that's generating the entire mesh in real time. Because I only have to filter down through a tree to qualify the larger triangles, which already cuts off a huge part of the mesh generation. And then I drill down into the more and more detail until it surrounds the player. Naturally, it's just how the algorithm works. So that's actually quite fast. Now if I go to the max detail here, because you're going far enough away, this drops. But this is 14 frames in a second. That's 14. Right now I have it so that each frame it updates the mesh. So that's pretty fast. I think that's literally, I guess you could say it's 60 milliseconds per frame. It's probably how long it's taking to actually do this. There's no VSync setup on this, so it should be showing as fast as possible. So that should be pretty accurate at about 60 or 70 milliseconds, which is I think pretty fast. Now if I go far enough away, let's go ahead and take this player, like, as he goes away, you can see how the level of detail starts to go down because the player is going further and further and further away. And when the player is really, really far away, you can see that the level of detail will be generated much, much faster. And we've got up to 390, we got somewhere between 300 to 390 frames per second at 3 millisecond generation for that mesh, because there isn't a lot of detail that needs to be rendered. So that's pretty fast. So it gets a little sluggish when the player gets maybe about here, because you are generating enough detail of the planet for the player to see, because you're getting closer. But again, there's a horizon that gets generated. So, but how does it know the radius at which to determine the LOD, level of detail? Well, if you were to imagine from the center to the player, here is the distance, and where the player is from the distance of this planet. Then if you were to consider a array going from here to the horizon, right, that's the radius. All right, so we have the hypotenuse, if you will, the larger vector here to the player, but you have this adjacent edge here. We know these, and we know this, and we know this. We just don't know the distance to here. But we can find it using the Pythagorean theorem, and we can easily find out where the player is. And then using that, we can find the distance from the player to this horizon, and then that's the initial radius of what the player can see. That's literally the cap point. Beyond that, the player can't see anything. However, at that point, it might include some triangles that are of lower detail. So some of these other larger triangles might get caught up in this small radius, because it might actually be maybe to here. But anyways, if the player was far enough away, you would see a lot of these start collapsing down. Let me just get them far enough away here. You can kind of see how it collapses down. There you go, like that. So they're really far away. But as the player gets closer, the same thing happens. It starts to, readjust the mesh from the largest to the smallest, coming in here. You can see there's quite a sharp drop to the lower levels of detail, but it's not actually a big problem because look down here and down here. See this camera preview, right? The player can only see to the horizon, so as you go up, you see, it doesn't matter what happens outside of the player's view. Like even here, you can kind of see how this little edge is kind of, you know, dropping down to this line here. It doesn't matter because if you look at where the player is, right, the horizon. Let me just come in here. You can see they can't see that, so it doesn't matter. You can see down here, right, if the player moves away, see, they can see the detail they need for the planet. So it works out nicely. And as the player gets closer, right, it's only going to render that small area, which is really fast. See, almost over 100 frames per second. So that's quite nice. And this will be run in a thread, so it'll synchronize in a thread. It's not going to be in the actual update loop for the frames, but I'll have it in the background thread. And while the player is going to probably be spending most of their time either in space or on the actual planet itself, you know, if in the off chance they're, you know, hovering outside the planet here, maybe I will adjust this so that the level of detail is not so big for this level. Maybe I'll have these ones stretched down a bit more. So I'm still tweaking it, but we'll see how it looks in the actual game in the next video. So subscribe and stay tuned, and I'll let you know how that turns out. And also, feel free to help spread the word. The more feedback I get, the better, to help the progress of this. You know, just kind of inventing things as I go along. I know certain key things I have to get done before I start solidifying on some ideas, but now's the time to give feedback and some ideas. The idea for the game is going to be something similar to the player may not actually be a person. So the idea is using nanotechnology, you know, drones and so on and so forth that are built using nanotechnology. I think it just makes for a much more exciting prospect because you can do some cool effects and some other things that you couldn't normally do if the person was human. Because we are talking about distant, far-off places in alien worlds, and I thought, you know, why not do it from that perspective, using some kind of nanotechnology, you know, that exists inside of a drone that was created by, you know, ancient, you know, race from a long time ago type of thing. But plus it also means, you know, when things die, it's not, you know, blood and gore. So I mean, we don't need there's enough of that in FPS games. We don't need a lot more of that. But anyways, you know, again, I just want to come at it from a fresh perspective. We'll see how it goes. But anyways, go ahead and spread the word, and yeah, have a great day. Thanks a lot. Bye.